Good afternoon and welcome to the Board of County Commissioners Board Work Session. It is Wednesday, November 7th, 2022. It is 1:38 p.m. This session is set to go until 3:30 p.m. This is a hybrid meeting. We're in Building 1, Room 280. For public virtual attendance, you may follow along on the Thurston County YouTube channel. The topics on today's agenda is the final budget deliberations, and decisions are requested from the board. And then I'm Carolina Mejia. I'm the chair of the board. To my right is Vice Chair Ty Menser. To my left is Commissioner Gary Edwards. Also in the boardroom, we have County Manager Ramiro Chavez and Assistant County Manager Robin Campbell, as well as the budget team who are towards the end of the boardroom, but they're ready. So with that, Robin, I'm handing it to you.
Great, thank you, Commissioner. Robin Campbell, Assistant County Manager, and as you stated, this is we're in the final stretch of budget, and today and tomorrow morning we've reserved time with you for final deliberations. We need your final decisions on the budget so that staff have time to complete the appropriate documents and make any changes that you might request this morning or this afternoon. There are two tasks today and tomorrow morning if we need it. And those are, first, for the board to discuss any changes that you might want to make to the budget. And second, to review the list of resolutions and ordinances that we will be asking you to adopt next Friday. And we have, I think, about all of them, at least in draft form, if not final. So, launching straight into part one. My question is, based on all of the testimony that you received in the last 2 days, and the few written comments that we got, are there any changes that the board would like to make to the budget? So based on any public testimony or anything else that has come to your attention, then after you talk about that, I'm going to ask you specifically about the two items that I raised last night that came to our attention very late in the process, and then Romero needs to talk to you about the salary commission. So, opening up to discussion, are there any changes you would like to make based on testimony received?
Okay, commissioners.
You want me to make? No,
No, things captured very well.
I think I'm good with what we've worked out to get to this point.
See.
I have a question for just in response to a comment we got from Mr. Crawford, I think, as well as one we got from Ms. Farrell the night before. And I guess this is for Commissioner Menser, right? Because we've made this, I know we've made this kind of yearly dedication of funds towards that, but I kind of was hoping to hear from you, since you're the representative on that committee, and kind of give me your input and your kind of view on things.
Sure. So kind of my response, I guess, in a sense to what Tom said and Phyllis, that so the first thing is that the numbers that they were using for comparison are kind of apples to oranges a little bit. They were seizing on a line item that we have in the climate, for regional climate projects yet to be determined as the Climate Steering Committee. We created that pool fund of $300,000, which is now, I guess, $268. We also allocated $37,500 toward a clean energy project, but that was subject to the Climate Steering Committee blessing a particular project. So let's say there's about 300,000. That number came from TCAT, 2 years ago, said their estimation of the implementation by jurisdictions of all the actions in the plan would be around, and it was back of the napkin, but it was around 1.2 million. We've been dividing everything in quarters. So I said, well, that means Thurston County is going to have to pony up 300,000, and so I argued for that, and I think it was a unanimous decision of the Commissioner Hutchings, Edwards, and myself to allocate that money to have it available for those projects. Now, apparently that estimation is now 3 million, not 1.2, but I would just like to say at the beginning, Thurston County was the first one to take TCAT's, estimate of the plan of implementation and act on it. Meanwhile, we've also, but that's only, that number that they're seizing on is just one piece. Now, they're saying we should be contributing 1.4 million. I don't think we would add up all of our actions and it would make 1.4 million, but it would make more than 300,000 because we've hired a climate coordinator. They were talking about purchases of EVs in the fleet, and we've looked at planning for solar. We've got planning resources at CPED working on the tree ordinance, which is directly connected to a Thurston climate policy. So we have all sorts of strands of we just haven't sat down. We can have maybe Rebecca do that and put together sort of, here's kind of a comprehensive look at what the county's spending on climate right now. Now, the other thing I would say is that, the time I've been on the board, we've been committed to those activities, and we've never said no. In fact, I and Thurston County and Olympia led the charge for a study on the cost. It was a study looking at what it would be the cost allocation if we were to implement electrification of buildings. Again, we were leading. Tom Water finally came around, Lacey finally came around, but we've been leading every step of the way. And to me, we've had that $300,000 and we haven't gotten to the point of identifying regional projects that we would deploy those resources. And if we deploy, and we're gonna have a retreat in January where we're gonna try to kind of retool the way the Climate Action Steering Committee is working to get more organized on that. And if we get to the point where we're coming up with projects and we've spent all that money, I'm absolutely willing to consider, further resources. But I don't think that Tom was trying to say that it was gonna be $1.4 million a year. Or I think and then I think that's what Phyllis said. Then Tom said 700,000. He would like to see us have a $700,000 bucket. But I think that's kind of like a multi-year. I don't have his testimony in front of me. I don't think he was saying we should have embedded $700,000 every single year for time immemorial. I mean, I guess my response is just we have money available to deploy. If that becomes inadequate, we can always revisit, where we could get new resources. I don't think at this particular juncture, it's not a full reflection of everything the county's doing. And I'm pretty, and given the speed at which I know that the climate committee is working, because I attend the meetings, I think we've got plenty of resources to do regional projects here for the next year. And we've been carrying this money over. It was not intended to be for 1 year but it was not intended to be all we'd ever spend ever. It was just a pool of seed money to try to get projects going. And it's taken a little longer to get regional projects coordinated than I thought, which is why we've canceled the November and December meetings, and staff are working up proposals for a complete reset of and we're gonna discuss those at a retreat in January. So that's kind of where I'm at. I mean, I understand what they're saying, and it's good information for the board to know that those commitments might be coming, but I don't want to disrupt all the decisions we've made so far, and I think we have adequate resources allocated for the projects that I see on the 2023, climate docket, so to speak, for the region. And Rebecca, I think, is going to play a key role. I mean, I think a lot of the reason why we haven't deployed those and haven't gotten all that money spent is because we didn't have the staff person. It was critical to get her. We got her funded in the last budget, but we've just gotten her in the last month working. And I think Tom's point about having her kind of do a project list for the year and then a report, I think that's a great idea. And I have a feeling that's going to be a recommendation to the jurisdictions coming out of the Climate Action Steering Committee. And that's something we can talk to Rebecca about. That's a great suggestion, and then we'll know kind of, are we on track financially for what we need, or do we need more resources? And we can have that discussion. We're building a new budget for 2024, so anyway, that's kind of how I feel. I think it was a good comment. It's good to know that they've rethought through and it's great for the jurisdictions to all kind of hear, so we can think it. In fact, plant that seed in our brains so we've got it for long-term planning. But I don't feel the need to disrupt this budget to put more money in for 2023, given that we've got more things going on than just that pot of money. That pot of money is for regional projects to kind of work through the steering committee with.
Thank you for that. And again, the reason I ask you is because you are a representative on there and you do attend those meetings on a monthly basis. So you're kind of more up to date onto what the committee is working on and kind of what's going to happen in the coming years. And it's, we're very excited to have Rebecca on board. I think that's been a big missing piece for us. And having her on board, I think things will be kind of laid out more clearly in next year and the coming years. County Manager, you had your hand up, sir.
Yep, I think just a thought. I appreciate that perspective, Commissioner Menser. At least from my point of view, I think Rebecca is going to play a key role. She's going to be developing a work plan as to how we're going to be implementing some of the strategies of the climate mitigation plan at the region. And it may not be just the bucket of money, but it's 300,000 and $1 million. This is the long journey. And within the long journey, the board and the next biennium and the following bienniums needs to make strategic decisions based on those projects as to how we're going to continue to address the climate. So I appreciate that perspective. It's not just today, it's not just next year, it's a long journey. And Rebecca is going to give us that perspective. It's going to give us the roadmap as to how we can start addressing this very complex issue. And the board will have to make decisions along the way. And again, it may not be this budget cycle only, nor the next biennium. It will be for the upcoming bienniums.
Even without Rebecca, this board has got, in addition to allocating that pool of money, this board has got working on agricultural policy, which connects to the climate plan, on forestry, long-term forestry, which is another docket item being worked on by staff. We've been putting together a plan for EV conversion and talking about charging stations. We've had our buildings evaluated for solar. I mean, all these things relate to strategies in the plan, and they're outside that bucket of money. So
You have formed the Sea Pacer program.
and we started the Sea Pacer. Yeah, all that is separate. So, I don't know what that number looks like if we were trying to make it analogous to whatever Lacey came up with, but it's probably more in line with $700,000, not 300, when we added up the different strands of what we're doing across the county. We'll
Okay.
continue to do the work. Like I say, if something comes up and we don't have the money and we need to consider other alternatives, my mind's always gonna be open, but that's speculative as of right now as to what 2023 holds.
Okay, so, and then,
So I'm hearing no changes to the budget based on public testimony.
no,
I mean, the only other really specific ask that we got, repeatedly was about would be, to not do the road fund shift at all for 1 year, given the thing. And, understanding that we might have to start it back up again next year, but that money could go toward more road preservation this year. I mean, that suggestion was certainly, on point in terms of something that, because the board, we've definitely discussed and examined that on a long-term ongoing basis, like how much could we afford to do how fast could we spend it down over time?
Right.
We never talked about a one-time shot, because to me, it's like, I want to get off of it and stay off of it forever. That's
Right.
like my goal. So that's
Right.
why
So we are
I don't
weaning
really-
ourselves off of it.
I don't really like the idea of dropping it to zero, then having to go back to 2 million next year, just because we could squeeze another 2 million. I mean, I don't know, I just thought it was worth the board discussing, because we do have this excess of one-time capacity versus ongoing capacity.
Yeah, that's difficult when one time versus the ongoing needs. And that seems to always be a hurdle.
We also, the level of fund balance is what is sustaining us on the slow spending down of
Right.
fund balance. If you pull 2 million out now, that's 2 million less that you have in the.
Can you just put it into the model and let
Yeah,
us see?
I'm just bringing the model up now to do,
'Cause that's really
see if
where
I can't
rubber
do
meets the
exactly
road.
that.
You need to log in.
Yeah, but first I have to find the model and see if I can make it work. Cause this model, I usually have a little time to work with it before I bring it into a boardroom.
Well, I guess I'll just say I'm kind of on that same mindset of, I would like to get off it, but I want for it to be sustainable long-term instead of just getting off of it and then having to come back to it. And, it seems like we have a plan set out where we've, all made a commitment to kind of slowly wean off of it year after year. And we've kept to that promise so far. So, I do agree, it'd be great if we didn't have to, but, we're kind of where we are at, and for it to be, not a complete shock to the general fund. And we are supplementing a lot with REIT is another thing, and I think, we are, we're funding a lot of projects through REIT.
The one thing I was thinking about was just, is it justified as a way to, how like inflation, construction costs kind of took a hit even on our what we were able to do that we would normally be able to do, which is probably a little less than we'd like to be able to do. So in terms of just mitigating in the very short term what inflation and construction costs are doing to us in the next year, is there a rationale for it? I'm still leaning against it, but that was just something I thought about.
The difficulty will be is, how the bidding process, the bidding environment will be next year. You can probably set aside and then react if you get to that point. But assigning for a specific increase in construction cost may not be, because we don't know. And as you heard from Robin, maybe a downturn in the economy a little bit. I just heard this morning, construction homes are declining a little bit because there is not enough demand. So there's a lot of variables in that. Certainly, I think is good thought. That you may want to exercise that thought, if I may, next year when the things are coming a little more clear.
So this is what it looks like if we take out the 2.25 million
For 1 year.
for 1 year only.
And versus where we,
Yeah.
doesn't get us back to our target line by 30/20
So-
versus where it was
If I
before.
undo that and go back to the graph,
Yeah. I'm not.
you're 2 million under the line, because you're just taking it straight out.
Putting it too close already for me.
I've nothing to add, you guys are covered.
So,
I'm good,
all right,
but we're not.
Can we restate the question, no changes, commissioners?
No changes.
That's,
no changes based on
Based on the public
public
testimony.
because I got 2 more things to ask you.
Yeah, that's, okay, thank you.
Thumbs up on this first one, right?
Yep.
It's gonna be page 12,
On page 12?
the last one.
Oh, this are the additions.
Those are the in addition to, yeah, so let's talk about the 2 of those. And I'm gonna talk about the treatment sales tax purchase of a house first. And these are those 2 additional items that they're not in this packet, Commissioner, they are part of the presentation that you saw last night.
so we have any,
No, it's the last page of your packet is that slide from the presentation.
Oh, you added that to well.
so it's what
Good job.
Page
So,
12.
Right, the
it's
last one.
this page right here, yep. Go to the very end.
The last page of this.
Thank you, good job.
Got it, okay.
Yep, right here.
Could you pull up the
Every now and then.
sales
But
tax?
Jennifer on this part.
Can I do what?
Pull up the
Nicole.
treatment sales tax
We're all clear.
fund.
Oh, yes, I can find the treatment sales tax fund. But let me tell you a little bit more about this while I look for that particular financial plan. Maybe staff could find the financial plan and bring that up. This is a house that was, the purchase of the house and the 500,000 was approved in the 2020 budget, 2022 budget. It's a house that would be permanent housing for 3 or 4 individuals with serious mental illness. And like people who are discharged from Western State Hospital. So 3 to 4 people at any given time. It's been identified as a serious gap in the community. And it's in coordination with the BHASO, Behavioral Health Administrative Services Organization, who is also receiving funds from True Blood to marry up with our money and possibly buy another house. The issue is that the property has not been purchased and it won't close by the end of this year. They need the money next year. So this isn't an extra $500,000 that we're looking for in TST money. This is just moving the appropriation from 2022
Okay.
to 2023.
Oh, it's a
Zero
carryover?
impact on
Oh,
the
it's a
fund.
carryover.
It's a carryover,
Oh, okay.
right?
Yes.
Okay, I don't need to see it then. I thought it was an additional.
Okay.
Okay, that's what I thought. It
I
was,
did
an
too at
additional
first, but
request.
I looked back to see exactly what they were asking. They're just asking to spend the money next year. So that should be a easy yes to that. So looking for thumbs up on
To
that.
carry over.
To carry over 500,000 from the treatment sales tax from 2022 through to 2023.
Correct.
Thumbs up, thumbs down.
We better
thumbs up.
vote for it, I think, Tanya.
Yeah, you, I should say yes, based on your conversations at the BASO. All right, the second item on this list, or rather it's the first bullet, but I'm addressing it second because it's a little tougher. Currently, there are 3 positions, they're positions with end dates that the board approved to assist in implementation of the ERP. And through, this has been a really long process, but it has recently become evident that we are absolutely not gonna be able to stand the system up and start it operating on January 1, which has been the goal. We are working with Sierra Cedar, our implementation partner, to see what a reasonable timeline is. And right now, it's looking like May. It might not even be in May. We absolutely need the resources to continue implementation of the ERP. And the issue is specifically with the payroll module of the system. The financial module would have been ready to go, but it is not in the best interest of the county to stand up payroll and financials at different times. So we're not gonna start the financials on January 1. We have to wait. This is not bad because it gives us additional time to test and get comfortable in financials. It also gives time, the budget modules in the second phase, we're gonna start that January 16th. It sounds like the date that kicks off. And just recently, the budget team heard from Sierra Cedar that they don't know why we separated that from implementation of the financial. We did it on their recommendation, but they're telling us that it's good that it's gonna come up at roughly the same time. So, there are some good things about the delay. Sierra Cedar has acknowledged that it is completely on them, this delay. So earlier today, I talked with the steering committee, the Thurston County Steering Committee. We are reviewing the contract to see if there is any mitigation that Sierra Cedar would pay to the county to cover the additional costs of extending these positions, which, if we extended them through December 31st, would cost an additional $204,000
Of 2023.
in 2023.
Yeah.
Yep. We think that there's capacity in the project budget for that, but we are going to see how much of that Sierra Cedar will pay. We'd like to extend the end dates to the end of the year because we don't have a firm go-live date at this point, and we probably won't have one until we've run at least one payroll parallel, and that won't come until early next year. However, if you're uncomfortable extending that far out, then I would request that you extend at least through September 30th, which is one full quarter after implementation. And we think that we're gonna need that kind of resource to make sure that everything is running smoothly and working correctly. Again, we're reviewing the contract, and we will begin negotiation with Sierra Cedar on, since this is on them, shouldn't they pay for the extension? But I don't know what the answer to that's gonna be.
Don't they have a hammer over our head?
We talked today in the meeting with the consultant rep that we feel very much that we're at their mercy.
I'd also like to, if I may, provide a perspective. And I understand that this relationship with this consultant has not been the best.
Not ideal.
And it has been more of a trial and error type of relationship. But we're so invested already in this project. The extending those positions is just, I believe, the last leg to get us where we need to be. I clearly understand your reaction, and even at the beginning in the whole process, I was the first one to say, let's go with the second vendor. Even by then, we were already committed and invested on this process. So here we are, this is the last leg, and hopefully a year from today, we can look back and say how successful the implementation has been.
I mean, does anyone have an example of a project like this that doesn't have all these? I mean, it just seems like, kind of goes with the territory that, I went through the whole court, the Odyssey stuff, and
Well,
there's
that had
nothing but
plenty of
complaints from everywhere,
I
every
can
quarter.
totally give you my personal experience in First County. First County went through a similar process when I was there, and they use, what is the other vendor?
Workday.
Workday.
Yeah.
Similar in the scope, similar in magnitude, exactly the same process. And it's the same exact steps that we have gone, because it's one thing having an understanding of the system, what the business needs are, which, staff did a fantastic job in making sure that every single needs are looked at. And when you start getting to the ground and you start testing it and you start seeing what ifs, that's when you see that the continued revolving door in a way. So this is the last leg, and I will probably encourage the commissioners to approve this request.
And we need these resources. Our staff, one of the things that Diana Benson said on the call earlier today is to the Sierra Cedar staff, that the burnout is real. We've had staff devoted to bringing this system up for a year now, and resources are stretched. Our team is just coming out of our most intense work period. Financial services is just going into theirs to close the fiscal year. Payroll is extremely intense with open enrollment, and then they do year-end things. So this is not the time for us to pull resources that are used to support this project. At the same time, the entire team absolutely agrees that this is on Sierra Cedar and they should be bearing part of the cost, but we don't know what's in the contract yet. We're reviewing that.
So my thought process is, I do agree with Commissioner Edwards, they have a hammer over our heads in the situation. But they were so unflexible with us, to the point, I don't know how much, the first quote that came by, it was over 600,000.
Oh, it was almost $1 million, and we've got them down under 300,000 for when it was on the county.
But that took a lot of
Tons of
negotiation and
Time, it was a
And
long
time. And it was so stressful for staff. I remember meetings with Dennis, and Dennis was, and that's kind of where my heartburn comes from, is because they were so unflexible with us. And not willing to negotiate and really firm on that initial quote, but I really don't think that we have, another option, really. I agree with Commissioner Roberts. I think this is hammers over our head.
We need the resources, because if those resources are not there by March, beyond March, the project will be delayed.
Yeah.
And that's not what the county needs.
No. So,
And I think the other piece of this, really, it is a retention issue, if you think about it from an employee's standpoint.
so,
We have to bite the bullet, that's all. I mean, it doesn't have to mean you have to like it. I'm gonna bite the bullet on a couple other things. I mean, that's just it.
All right, so asking for your approval, I see 1, 2, 3 thumbs up. Thank you very much, Commissioners. This is hugely important to the whole county. Now I'm going to turn it over to Romero to talk about the Salary Commission.
Commissioners, and just a little bit of feedback for the members of the public. The county has a salary commission that is formed by citizens. They review the salaries of all elected officials in the county, including the Board of County Commissioners. They have meetings every year, and every year they go through that assessment. And every year, they provide recommendations to the Board of County Commissioners to adjust the salaries of all the elected officials except for the salaries of themselves. The Salary Commission makes recommendations to adjust the salaries of the county commissioners, but that's not within your purview of approving. That recommendation goes directly to the county auditor and is implemented in the county budget. That has been the practice in the past for the last few years. This year has been a little bit of an interesting process. The Salary Commission has not been able to secure a quorum. They have not been able to meet this year, and they have not been able to provide you with a recommendation on adjusting the salaries to the elected officials, including yours. Within the whole context, I believe that you do have the authority to adjust the salaries of the elected officials, but not yours at this time. So I'd just like to bring this to your attention. There is not a recommendation from the Salary Commission, and you do have the authority that would like to exercise it or not. That is within your conversation. If you'd like to adjust the salary of the other elected officials except for yours, there is a possibility we can encourage the Salary Commission members to meet early next year, and they can provide recommendations at that time. There may be a possibility that those recommendations may be retroactive to January 1st, 2023. And that always is part of that process. So just give you that piece of information. Usually at this time is when I bring the recommendations to you. Unfortunately, I have that recommendation for you today.
Commissioners,
Well-
Commissioner Roberts?
I guess I want to be consistent, and I have said for years, if you go check the salary commission right now, I've got a letter on file over there. Once in a while, I can't make it to a hearing, so I just call up Ruth and I'm like, hey, take my old letter out with you and read it to the board. And basically, I believe we just went through an election, but all of the elected officials know what the salary is when they sign up to run for office. And I feel that we ought to leave the salary alone. And if need be a cost of living thing or something somewhere down the road, I don't know, might entertain something like that, but definitely not any more than our employees get. I don't think the cost of living that they got covers the inflation, so I'm kind of for a no, nothing new at this point in time. I'm not in favor of any changes.
I'm not either. I mean, I think the salary, we went through, I think twice since I've been on the board, a review of all the different schemes that we could possibly use. None of them are perfect. All of them have flaws. The one that we've got is reasonable and I want to stick with it. So I don't plan to deviate from that by exercising some, what I would consider to be very random discretion to do one thing or the other. We need to follow the salary commission. If they fail to meet, then we all live with that. If they can meet early next year, great. All for that. If they make those recommendations, I'm happy to make them retroactive if that's appropriate and legal. Another little element of this just is that the salary commission has tended to keep, I think the prosecutor and the sheriff are on a different track, but they've tended to keep the other electeds and the commissioners on the same pace. So, you know, we'd be disrupting that sort of historical practice if we started tinkering with one versus the other. And they held those hearings and put more thought into it than I do, so I'm going to defer to the salary commission because that's what we've blessed as the county process.
And I'm in complete agreement with my seatmates. Okay.
Thank you, commissioners.
All right then, with that, we've got final decisions on the budget. Woo! Then the only other thing that we need to do is I am going to walk you through this list of resolutions so you know what's coming at you next Friday. When we meet Friday,
So I put a clarification for next Friday.
sure,
On when we're gonna be developing the agenda, there's gonna be another item at the end of the budget. There will be the swearing in for Commissioner Mintzer. We need to have that at the end, the last regular meeting of the board.
yes,
So that will be
that's right.
an addition, just to be clear, that there's, after
You
you have the
take your oath of
discussion
office.
on everything, there will be another item at the end of that agenda
Right.
that you need to have that, and we already work on the logistics.
I'll be giving my 90-minute address on the
Yes,
stage.
yeah.
County.
Having your speech ready.
Yep, all right. So, the list you see today is the one we use for this purpose, but we are developing your usual agenda outline. It's in the AIS system, and as we go, we're adding the resolutions as they are signed off on by the attorneys. All of I think that we have a minimum, a draft of the resolution that's being worked on in this packet, if you'd like to look at the particular one. But here's the order that we'll go through. First, we will ask you to approve the public infrastructure plans, starting with Appendix G of the County Comprehensive Plan, also known as the Capital Improvement Program, the CIP, also called the CFP, but it's your capital infrastructure plans for the next 6 years. The second resolution is the TIP, or the Transportation Improvement Program. presented by Public Works, required by the state, that outlines the next 6 year of road projects. Then we move on to internal services. There are only 2 internal services that you are required by law to adopt through resolution. The first will be the 2023 cost plan. That's the one that's prepared by Financial Services, and you were briefed on that over the summer. And then the second resolution establishes the ER&R, or equipment rental and replacement rates. That resolution includes the rates, rental hourly rates for entities outside of Thurston County who use our equipment. So the board has to set the hourly rate each year for that. And then also the equipment list, which is a comprehensive list of items that the county will purchase next year. So that's in there. All the vehicles, all the big public works equipment. If we're gonna buy radios for the sheriff, they're on that list. Anything that we're purchasing out of the ER&R fund. Because
Oh,
the board has,
replacement.
scheduled,
Not just anything that might come up, 'cause that's,
no, anything that, if something comes up like a vehicle, let's say that there's an accident and we have to replace a vehicle. If it wasn't on this list, we bring it to you in a separate action.
You need to approve it.
Yes, the board, and this is because according to state law, the Board of County Commissioners is responsible for all the property of the county. So that's why you see that property inventory every year. That's why you approve the equipment purchase list, everything like that. If it's money, property, FTEs, it's the purview of the board. The next item is personnel actions. So the 5th resolution in this packet is setting salaries for non-union county employees. So there's the wage step plan, the salary ranges for the MTP, or management and technical pay plan, the salary ranges for positions at will, the salary and step plan for the non-represented, defense attorneys and the deputy prosecuting attorneys in the civil division. I believe they're all non-represented. These are not the salaries for union employees because we are still in the bargaining stages of our union contracts. These assume a 2.5% COLA, which is what the board has in the budget. So you are asked to approve, it's a 2.5% COLA for your non-represented employees. The resolution number 6.
Can I ask about
Yes,
resolution
please,
number 5?
please stop me.
And I know we had talked about the possibility of doing a end of the year bonus.
Bonus?
So that doesn't have to be
No.
on here?
And we are not asking the board to approve the bonus until we complete
The contract.
the bargaining for the contracts, so that you can make them consistent with any amounts that are bargained in the union contracts.
And when will that be?
So we're hoping to, I just received a whole package of recommendations from the union. It's gonna take us a little while to get to a settlement, let's put it that way. I'm hoping to have a contract before you, my hope, is in the first quarter of next year.
so Debbie left, and is Cameron the lead?
Yeah.
And does he have support? Like, he supported Debbie, right? Does he have someone?
We're working on that, yeah, yes.
Right, so once Once all of that is finished and we have an amount, then we will come to you with a resolution and request authority to pay the bonus. You could direct us to pay the bonus to non-represented employees now and set an amount for that. That is your prerogative, but we were trying to keep it all,
At least that
Together.
portion of the compensation consistent.
Understood.
Well, sheriff and corrections are getting their bonuses.
the sheriff's office is receiving their bonus. It's $5,000
Corrections
bonus
amount.
that's paid out over 10 months, $500 a month. The corrections didn't want a bonus.
That's right,
Yeah,
that's right.
they didn't want a bonus.
Um,
And if the board consider a bonus next year when all the contracts are signed, the corrections contract will be excluded from that portion because
And the
that,
other contract.
yeah, because
Right.
they're on
Both
contract,
streams,
yeah.
as I got through.
My next question is in regards to, will this negotiation spread into when we get the market study, and how can that play a role into that?
I think, I don't believe it will have, because the decision of the board are related to the class and comp, most likely will be part of your biennial budget next year. So, so those conversations will be during the fall of next year. What is it that you'd like to do as a result of the class and comp? I don't believe we'll have an impact. They may have a different expectation, but I don't believe we'll have an impact on the negotiations.
Okay.
All right?
Okay.
So, no bonus yet, but we have money in this budget earmarked at $1,000 per employee. If it's more, we can use lost revenue for the general fund portion. There's money sitting there for that. And if it exceeds the amount available there, then we can have a conversation about how to pay for it. But still to come. Number 6 in your packet is the resolution for, it's called position control. This resolution has all of the changes for all of the FTEs that you've approved. New FTEs, any FTEs that have been reclassed, any changes in the amount of an FTE, extension of end dates, all of those are reflected in position control. Then finally, we get to number 7, and that is the resolution that actually adopts the operating budget. And the attachment A is not here yet because that needs to be produced out of the system, the budget system, once you've made final decisions, so we'll be able to run that tonight. But what is here is attachment B, and I'm going to go down this list because these are the provisos in the budget, and I want to make sure that you are comfortable with what we have here and that we're not missing anything. So a proviso is a specific directive to the office or department receiving an appropriation on how a certain amount of the money can be spent. So it's basically a restriction on a specific amount of money, or an approval to do something that would be out of the norm, if you will. So the first one provides that the Board of County Commissioners can require approval prior to filling any vacant positions. And what this does is enables you to enact a hiring freeze at any point in time. And we've had long conversations about what that could mean, but this just enables you to do it. Number two states that $100,000 of the millage that comes in for mental health, and remember, that's just under $1.5 million this year. 100,000 of that will be transferred to the BHASO, and they can only use that money to serve persons with mental health problems in accordance with the law on how that money is used. That was part of the agreement that was made at the time that the BHO separated from the county. And it was the BHO then, not the BHASO. And we've just been continuing it at a flat amount ever since. You do not have to do this, but it's, I think,
Mason doesn't do it
Yeah.
right. I think that's
not
what
that
we
I'm
learned.
aware of.
That's
Only
what we
Thurston
learned
County
at one
does.
of our meetings.
I still remember that conversation when this came to be.
Yeah, you can make it higher, you can make it lower, it's completely up to Board of County Commissioners if you would like to continue this transfer. We assume that you will. I'm gonna move right on. Number three is the county receives a liquor contribution. It's part of the revenue sharing from the state of Washington. A percentage of that money can only be used for behavioral health treatment. And so we pass that percentage straight through to the BHASO. Whatever amount it is, we just pass it right through. And the board,
The
again,
state tells us what it is, right?
the
amount.
state tells us how we can use it.
But don't they also send us that money?
They do send us the money that comes from the state, and this is what I'm saying, is we take the earmarked amount, I think it's like 10% of the payment can only be used for behavioral health treatment. And it was determined at the time the BHO separated from the county that they're providing that treatment, and the easiest thing for the county to do is just pass the money through to them. So we recommend that we continue that practice. Number four is the proviso that the position that the sheriff's office has for the North Thurston School Resource Officer is only approved as long as the school district pays at least 75% of the cost of this position. And that requirement has been met. It is anticipated to continue, and I think it was North Thurston. Yeah, North Thurston that had been going to end the contract with the sheriff's office.
They just renewed it, the board just
Right,
renewed it.
they
were in the
decided to
talks.
renew, they were talking
And in fact,
about
they
eliminating,
just
they
renewed
decided,
that for 3 years.
right. If at any point the contract is not renewed, number five is the same for Rochester. Or if the funding provided by the school district dropped below 75%, then the position would be abolished. That's basically what these provisos are saying. But,
That's consistent with how it's been set up for a
It
while.
was set up from the
Yes.
beginning.
yeah,
These are
from
pretty
the
carryover
start.
provisos.
That's right. You've had these provisos in your budget since the year that you see here. 2018 for the North Thurston and 2020 for Rochester. Number six provides that the positions authorized in the clerk, superior court, prosecuting attorney, and public defense offices that are intended to support the Involuntary Treatment Act cases and hearings may only be filled if the money is received from the BHASO to cover the cost of those positions. Up until now, we have contracts, each of these offices has a contract with the BHASO that is strictly for the cost of the position. I've been contacted by Mark Friedman, and apparently Commissioners Mentor and Edwards, you've heard this from the BHASO. The state is requiring that we convert to a case rate instead of just billing them for our actual costs. Mark and I talked about this, and so in January, I will begin to work with these offices, and I'll enlist the assistance of financial services to develop a case rate that will cover the entire cost of the county to provide these services. So it'll be different. It'll be a contract with the county rather than a separate contract with each office. And it'll probably take us a couple of months to come to a rate that makes sense, but we should still receive sufficient funding to cover the costs of the county.
Yeah, if we get it right and the state doesn't cause us problems, it should be a net wash.
That's right.
But we just have to calculate it in this different way.
That's right.
And it'll be less precise, obviously.
It will be much less precise. It will also be very restrictive. Once we set a rate, if our
That's
costs go up or down,
And that is why it's so important to go through the rate study to make sure that we cover all the ancillary costs.
Yeah.
You know, indirect and everything else.
total cost of doing business. So that's number 6. I think it's still valid, but changing somewhat on how we enact it. Number 7 provides that Fund 1550, which is the payment for 911. The county collects the tax. We are required to collect the tax. TCOM 911 is not considered a government entity by the state auditor, so the county has to collect the tax, and then we just pass it right through. So we budget a little higher than what we estimate the tax to be, and this proviso says that we will pass through what we actually receive, not the budgeted amount. And then number 9 is the same thing for the Fund 1920, which is the tourism promotion area payments, also called the TPA, the payments made to the Visitor and Convention Bureau. They administer the TPA on behalf of the county. We will pass through exactly what we receive, not necessarily the budgeted amount. Number 9 is $268,841. This is the portion of the $300,000 that remains to be used solely for the implementation of the Thurston Climate Mitigation Plan. So this proviso is as in the past. It restricts that money. It can't be used for any other purpose. Number 10 is the agreement that the board has made with the assessor regarding the Real Estate Excise Tax Technology Fund, the RETech Fund. That fund, the budget includes an FTE to be paid by that fund, and the assessor is given the authority to pay for the position out of the general fund if he has capacity to do so. This is a unique allowance for the assessor. So, go ahead.
My question is, I thought he wasn't using this.
Oh, he uses it.
He uses it?
You bet he does.
The last 2 years.
He uses as little as of the RETech fund as he has to. He shifts as much of the cost as he can to the general fund. Although in recent years, he has been reverting general fund money.
Okay.
Usually comes right.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
He'd be
$1.
a few dollars off at the end
This
of the year.
mechanism lets him do that.
Right?
Yes,
It
yes,
allows
it
you
does.
to get to that nth
Yeah.
Basically a little,
He wants to minimize use of the RETEC fund. Usually the board wants to minimize use of the general fund, but you've allowed
he's
this
minimizing reversion
concession.
in order to extend the life of the
Of the
RETEC.
RETEC
You've
fund.
heard
That is
this
exactly
also,
right.
it's a coordination with the treasurer, because the treasurer also accesses this.
Right, we
RETEC
make sure
fund.
that there is sufficient money in the RETEC fund for the treasurer who won't be too much longer before the treasurer tells you he needs to replace equipment, and this is the fund to do
Right.
that with.
Okay.
That will be a good conversation.
All right, the next item, 11, this allows the auditor to transfer unspent general fund appropriation that would be paid for elections purposes. Any funds that they were appropriated for elections and didn't spend can be transferred to the auditor's election reserve. This is a strategy to keep the elections budget pretty flat throughout the 4-year election cycle. Because if you didn't do this, every year through the cycle, in any given year, the presidential year is extremely expensive for elections. Then the year after that, not as expensive. And then the midterm year is sort of expensive and then not so expensive. So what we saw early in my tenure at the county is the auditor would come in every year, please increase my election budget, please decrease my election budget. So I think it was in around 2015, I worked with Auditor Hall and we established an election reserve fund. And for the 3 not as expensive years, we pay into the election reserve fund, and the auditor is allowed to transfer money that she doesn't spend on elections. And in the 4th year, the presidential year, that's when we take money out of the election reserve fund and transfer it back into the general fund so she has sufficient funding to pay the extreme election costs.
Is any part of this changed by that law that passed that the state pays for its own elections, I think on an off year?
That makes more revenue into the county, but we never received enough money from the state to fully cover elections. But this allows you
This proviso still
to,
is valid in terms of the way
It
it's phrased,
absolutely
it's
is.
structured.
yep, this allows the appropriation for elections to be level and you're not going up and down every year. It takes some of the crazy out of the budget. Number 12, provides that 90,000 of the general fund is solely for redrawing the boundaries. So this is the boundary work that's going to continue next year and could be used for the election costs.
Yeah,
If
and I
it's-
think it also covers a little bit the work the auditor's office is going to do when the board considers approving this.
And then if
But wait, was this because we weren't sure if it was gonna pass? So now we don't need this,
So
or?
it was we had that in this year. And we had an MOU with the port to share the cost of the redistricting. That perhaps is not gonna be needed because on the MOU, the port pay for the informational flyer. And I need to consolidate the cost. I think it's gonna be a wash, so it's not gonna be a cost for any of the 2 jurisdictions. But this is a carryover in a way to allow the county auditor to really start redistricting and laying those districts out ready for election.
the beauty of a proviso is the money can't be used for anything else. So if it's not spent for this purpose, it won't be spent.
Okay.
That's why you do a proviso. You're restricting money. Number 13 is 500,000 of the ARPA funding is specifically to continue the program I think this is in district court, yep,
The scramble.
for tech instead of incarceration. Number 14 is for a position in public health that was approved last year. It still can only be filled once the county has an approved equity plan. Do we have that yet?
No.
No. Go ahead.
That's what the committee's been, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, that would be as part of the,
I'm gonna ask to remove this. And the reason I'm asking to remove this is, we have a new not executive director, a new department director who's coming on board. We talked at length about DEI, and I would want to see what he comes up with, right, after he's been in the department. What he comes up with in terms of what he would like to implement in that department, instead of having this carryover come through. I would want to see what his vision is in terms of DEI for that department. So, given that, we just established our commission and they're working on the equity plan, I would want the new department director to, have his own vision on what he wants in terms of DEI.
And to go ahead and fill this position to be able to carry that out.
So I would actually just,
So this is authority to fill a position.
contingent to.
Right,
If you
contingent
take that
to having a
contingent-
countywide,
Yeah, if you take this
plan.
contingency out,
That
then
means
they
he
can
can
go ahead
fill
and fill January 1st.
But he
so,
doesn't have to fill it.
but he doesn't have to.
He doesn't have to. But he, as Commissioner Mejia, if I may understand, you want to give the new director the flexibility.
I-
She's saying take it away.
I'm saying take the position away.
Take the
I want-
Oh, take the
away?
position
He
away.
wants to,
Oh.
what she's saying is if he wants that position, he can propose it, but we shouldn't be telling him this is the position you need. Maybe he decided he doesn't.
Oh, I thought you were
No,
You were suggesting to remove the
I thought so
proviso.
too, and that's what it would do. You're suggesting eliminating a position.
because I honestly want to see what, in terms of what he comes up with on his, like, if it's something where he's like, he's going to need a position, maybe it comes up with something similar to this or exactly like this, but I kind of want to see what his vision is in terms of DEI. And I don't want something kind of already prescribed.
So let's think of how to, instead of removing the position, because he might need it and it's easier to just have it and fill it, maybe we could have the proviso say, is only approved upon the,
The
how we would-
director.
yeah,
Of
what if
health
it
social
would
services.
it report, well, we wanna have him provide some type of a report of his plan.
That might be probably the best as opposed to eliminate that position, because with the proviso, nobody will be able to fill it if they don't meet the intended proviso requirements. So,
You could say, only approved once Director of Public Health Social Services has approved it for inclusion in a department-wide DEI strategy.
Don't you wanna review his plan before
I
he
think
fills
what I'm hearing
the,
is that the proviso should include a report submitted to the board.
right?
I mean, that's up to, I guess,
I'm trying.
I was hearing you say you want to give him the
I
latitude.
want to give him
Not
the
that I want to
latitude.
control what you
No.
do, it's that I want him to set the strategy.
That's what
Well,
I
if
thought,
he
that
would-
you wanted
if
to
he-
eliminate the proviso, but you're saying
Right.
eliminate the position, which doesn't give him the
That's
latitude.
even less
Well, like
latitude,
for
yeah.
me, it's like I would like to, so kind of like where I'm coming from, right, is
in terms of this position, and the reason I objected to it last year was it seems like kind of the first, whenever we talk about DEI, is filling all these different positions of different things without kind of knowing where we're going. And that's why I was like, well, we need a racial equity plan first. Like, that's kind of, you know, we hadn't even hired, you know, or filled our position up when all of a sudden we had like all these different DEI positions coming from public health. And so that's why I was like, stop the brakes on that, because we're not, you know, we're trying to,
Wasn't it this very candidate who we hired who said that he tried to make sure that it wasn't just, let's hire a DEI coordinator, okay, we've dealt with that. No, it's about getting the principles throughout all the different pieces of
Talk
government.
about the cultural change in
The
an
cultural change,
organization.
and it may or may not include a DEI coordinator staff position.
and that's kind of was my conversation with him. It was one of the questions I asked for him.
So,
And so just with that conversation, I was like, well, for me, you know, I would like to give him that latitude for him to be able to decide how he fills that role up, if he wants to fill it up or not, if he has a different vision on, or a different position that he envisions, I want to be able to. So that's why I recommended removing it first, because then I thought maybe he could come up with a proposal that was different.
Seems like the point
But
is so
then
that he
his-
doesn't feel that it's, as long as it's clear that he doesn't have to, it's not like he's been told to fill this position. As
Exactly.
long as he knows that
Right.
he comes in and he has the latitude to say, I don't think that position should be filled.
And that
every
is-
director has that latitude.
And if that is the direction of the board today, for the county manager to work with the new director, that's a direction. But eliminating the position, I think, with all the respect, is gonna do the opposite of what you're trying to accomplish, given the flexibility. What I understand, I clearly understand, I believe, that you want to have a plan to understand what this new director is gonna do overall. And that can be part of the proviso. That he needs to provide you, the board, with a plan. And within the plan, this position could be as part of the implementation or not. But my suggestion will be for you to consider language in that provides in those terms, as opposed to go ahead and eliminate the position. Because I think it's gonna do the opposite of what you just said,
Right.
Commissioner.
Right, if you eliminate the position and he decides he needed a position of whatever type, then it's a year before he can have the new position. If you leave the position in place and he says, oh yeah, this is exactly what I need, then he can fill it. Or if he says, I need a position that's a little different than this, then he just comes with a reclass, and those are easy.
And the position, is this already funded? So it's not like, you know.
So leave it here, but let's figure out some language about how to give him discretion.
Okay. I mean, is that okay with
I'm
the
good with what
board?
you're saying.
I'm with you, whatever you do.
I mean, we could take out the proviso, not eliminate the position, and then he could fill it or not.
Yeah.
Well, if we direct the county manager to discuss that with him, I don't know that
Yeah,
his first
we don't-
order of business is
exactly,
gonna be
that's a-
reading our budget
That's
proviso.
your direction to me.
He's got a budget background, I bet he
Yeah.
does.
Maybe he does,
So,
we can direct the county manager to make it clear to him that
Yeah,
we're
and-
giving him latitude to fashion the
Yeah,
program as he
And now, so,
feels.
you know, through the conversation, you're required to bring a proposal to the board and have a discussion as to how you implement and
Right.
plan to implement the.
We could totally take the proviso out and not eliminate the position. And you could have the conversation and then he's got the latitude to do whatever he sees fit. So is
Would that work?
that,
Would that work?
yes? Let's
So
just,
we're no longer gonna make it contingent on an approved equity plan,
correct,
okay?
the director can, so we'll take out number 14 completely.
No, that's fine. I was trying, before we got into this lengthy discussion, I was trying to get an answer on the district court on the
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I'm sorry.
And I'm just wondering what's in that fund. now, because I don't think they spent everything dealing with that electronic
They
monitor.
spent a very small portion of
Yeah,
this.
so we might have quite a balance in that fund, is what I'm thinking.
We may have a substantial balance, and I can certainly check in with the court and get you an answer on how much has been spent.
I guess that ties in with, do we need to do the 500,000? Because they didn't spend very much last time around, and we tried to make sure they had adequate funding. And so do we need it somewhere else?
So
I
it's
don't know.
my understanding that they did stand the program up, that it's successful, and they want a full 500,000 next year.
They
So
wanted more than that, if I remember right.
they did.
We only gave them 500.
This may not be the result of them not doing the program.
Right.
I think this is the result of implementing a program and implementing the strategies as needed. And I think the need will continue to be, and that's what they're asking to do, is to carry over that.
But how much are we gonna build that fund up? That's what I'm wondering.
It's not, it's just the ARPA
It's
money.
there for money.
It's just the ARPA money.
Oh, okay, so it's not,
It's
it's
not-
not gonna affect general
No,
fund?
no, it's
Not
the
at
ARPA
all.
money.
Okay, that's
No,
all you
this
needed to
is
say.
ARPA funds.
It's the ARPA money.
Yeah.
Okay, good enough.
Yeah, and
That's all
it's
I
not
needed.
building up,
So,
it's
and,
getting
and they
spent.
don't have any authority to go beyond this amount.
Right.
Okay.
And they want the full 500,000
For some reason,
capacity.
I thought that was coming out of general fund.
Nope, we found a way to justify that in
Oh,
ARPA.
okay.
All right. Moving to number 15, there was money provided, 100,000 in '22, which didn't get spent, and 200,000 in '23 to be spent only, it's community grants focused on DEI only when we have the equity plan in place. So we would suggest that we leave this in. Number 6,
Community grants from who? Who's deciding this?
that is out of public health and social services.
That was another one where I remember those two were,
I don't even remember this one.
yeah, so it was in an effort to spend down the balance, and this was one of the proposals was
Spend down the balance of what?
of the TST funds, like, because
Oh,
we had
okay.
such a large,
TST.
That's
So-
what I need to know.
so they came,
Yeah, that's right.
That's important.
TST. We might want to add that to the proviso.
Yeah.
Provide
That's what you
increased
wanted to
TST funding, that would make all the,
because it was,
Charity.
because
Yeah,
this
that
was
was
brought,
good, TSD, and you're right. I
because
think
like,
it's-
what funding are we talking about?
because it was a sense of urgency to jump in this, and I think you have been consistent in terms of let's hold and see where we are before we exercise this.
Right. All right. Number 16 is the position that was provided for district court. This is a TST care coordinator, mental health and veterans court coordinator. And this can only be filled if the caseload is at least 55, and how many is it? Where are we at? 62. 62 cases in these courts, so at this point, they can go ahead and fill the position. Number 17 is a position approved for Public Works. This is a Public Works accounting position. This is the support for ERP implementation in Public Works, and it is only approved as long as they decommission CAMs. And I would request that this remains in the budget, because that has been a big negotiation with Public Works. They absolutely need the help, but only if they decommission CAMs.
So all these positions that are contingent on something, when we look at our budget model, are they, is it assumed that they're filled, that the
Yes.
conditions are met?
Yes,
So it's just a,
They are-
it's just
they
a
are funded.
windfall, so to speak, if the condition fails and the money's not spent.
yes, the money is reverted if it's not used
That's what
as
I thought, but
required.
I'm just making sure, because there's several here now where there's full FTEs that might or may not
Right.
happen, you know?
That's
I
exactly
don't know
right.
if the, I don't know if the caseload was 55 or not, and
So
I didn't know
we
if, I
checked.
don't, CAM's system, I mean, those are things I wouldn't have any knowledge of.
All right, and again, that is the whole point of a proviso, is you're restricting money to be spent in a certain way or under certain conditions. Line number 18 provides that all reclassifications have to go through human resources. And this applies to offices and departments. And human resources has to agree that the reclass is reasonable for the work that's going to be done.
Is this something new, or?
No,
That's been in there many years
that's what, how
now.
we
That's what I
bring,
thought.
that's how we bring the reclassifications is
Yeah.
vetted by HR.
Yep.
Not by individual
Some of
officer.
them take a long time. I can say from experience. Number 19 is $100,000. This is new this year, and this is highlighted because we need to have a conversation. The discussion at the time we wrote the proviso was that the steering committee would do a double assessment to repay us. But as you've seen, they're not willing to do that. I've provided information about a short-term loan. We don't have, it sounds like they're willing to enter into a loan agreement, but we don't have any specifics about that yet. So it doesn't make sense to make this contingent on a double assessment next year, since we know they're not gonna do that. How would you like to approach this $100 for
100,000.
Patterson Lake?
Can we
100,000.
just change it
100,000,
to
yeah.
contingent upon
Did I say a million?
agreement to a satisfactory repayment arrangement,
Yes,
leaving flexibility for how we get there?
okay.
It has to be an agreement, so I think we need to add an agreement.
Mutually agreed
Repayment plan.
repayment arrangement.
A mutually agreed repayment plan.
Yep.
All right. Very good. All right, number 20 is $10,000 out of non-departmental solely for election information costs of lake management districts. So, to cover whatever those costs may be. And then the last proviso is $310,000 from the Veterans Fund for the pilot program to reduce food insecurity, contingent on approval by the Veterans Advisory Board. And they continue to work on what that program might look like. So that's all of the provisos. Is there any other proviso that the board would like to see around funding in your budget?
Well, there's that, I don't know if we're ever gonna get there, but there's that issue that comes up, and we had to clarify it at one point, about the board allocated $37,500 for a regional clean energy program, and then we put the proviso in that it had to be, the Climate Action Steering Committee had to approve the terms of it. And I don't know that's still potentially gonna come up in 2023. So I don't know if it needs to be carried over in this, so that if it does come up, we don't have to redo what we did before, which was go back and reconstruct the history. There should be $37,500 floating out there. And we went through this a year or so ago where you guys thought it was just, gone, and I was able to establish that it was not. And then we put it back, we passed a motion of some kind that it, subject to
Is that as part
the,
of the proviso 9?
it's not in here now, I'm saying. Robin asked, is there anything else that needs to be in here? And I'm asking, does that need to be in here? So that money doesn't get lost in case Because if the Climate Action Steering Committee passes a motion, like next month or the month after, to allocate that, I think it's available. It should have been.
Is that in non-departmental?
I think it's in the same account as the other one. I think they're both combined.
They're both in there?
And I think that the amount we rolled forward was a combination of the two.
That could be true, because we
The
paid,
268.
because we paid more than 38,000 for the, yeah.
Yeah,
So
I
that's
can
probably
remember that
both.
conversation, yeah.
Okay, well, that's fine, as long as it just didn't get
But I think
lost.
you're right, it was, the carryover amount last year was, for this year was
Right.
230.
I remember
Even
that there
there-
was,
Because it made, yeah, because it, we paid for the phase 4, and that's like 55,000 or something. So you have
Right.
372, and that's where we get 268.
so
Okay,
that
never
money
mind.
is available
That-
for
that
whatever,
Yeah.
That
Purpose.
addresses your,
all
That's
right,
fine,
okay, good.
I think you're good.
All right, nothing else? Then,
you wanna
That's-
walk through the other,
yeah,
Not
then
eight,
we'll,
nine,
we'll
10.
move back to the rest of the list.
7, 8, 9, 10.
Yep, so once you do the operating budget, then you will adopt the capital budget. And remember that that is by fund, department, and project, so it's adopted at the project level. Then you approve taxes, so there's the resolution to increase the property tax. That is in addition to the resolution that you'll adopt on Tuesday to certify the property taxes. So then you do the property tax increase on Friday.
the 1%.
It doesn't say 1%, the resolution has a dollar amount and percentage for each levy.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
road levy,
Right, but it's
it's the dollar amount that translates.
It's lower, yeah, because of the way the math works.
It's
So when you say, oh, it's the 1%, it includes the 1%.
But it
it's
won't
the-
say
it's the
it's the
increase.
1%?
No, because
No.
we don't need that substantial need, because the CIP.
That's right,
is so much
you don't do the IPD substantial need
So you
resolution.
address that as a dollar amount, not necessarily as a matter of
Well, it
percentage.
has a dollar amount and a percentage. The language in the calculation is called out in state law. And it's weird, and this is part of the presentation yesterday that I kind of glossed over.
Is that in number 9? Is that-
That is part of number 9, yeah, so let's
Because
look at the
I don't know
resolution.
how it's laid out, but I plan on voting against that. You know, on the
You're gonna-
property tax.
You're gonna vote no on the property
Yes.
tax.
Yes, and I stated that the other day when we had that discussion. And the reason I can get into it, I feel that we've did a lot of taxing already without voter approval, and that's kind of my position on that.
Yep,
And I wanna stay consistent, so.
yep, that is your prerogative. So here you see under the therefores, and the general fund is the example. It's an increase of $268,824.19 above last year's highest lawful levy. That it calculates to an increase of 0.6133177, and a whole lot more decimals. It's not 1% because it
How that math
excludes,
works,
it excludes a bunch of stuff. Right, so there's the increase for current expense, there's an increase for the roads fund, it's 0.847, blah, blah, blah. The Medic One property tax is an increase of $77,000 over the highest lawful levy. For the non-levy lift, this is where the rate increase is kept lower for people, seniors and veterans. So we have to calculate that separately from the rest of the Medic One levy, which is in number 4. There's the 7% that was voter approved. And then number 5 is the increase for conservation futures. And both Elizabeth and Linda Rabbit reviewed these documents and said, yes, this is how it's supposed to be. So it looks weird.
What's the increase for conservation features?
So conservation futures is increasing by just under $10,000.
9,000.
And it's all lumped together in one resolution.
Yeah,
Yes, it is. Would you like them separate? That's why we're reviewing them now. If you want them separated, we need to
I'm not against
know.
conservation futures or some of the other issues in there, but I'm concerned about the 1%. I thought I made that clear
Yeah.
about a week
This,
ago.
this is the 1%.
Yeah, but
it's-
I mean, the way it was explained to me about a week ago or 10 days ago, whenever we had that discussion,
So is
that
the,
it was gonna be a separate
is the
vote.
current expense is what you,
The 1%
the
issue.
current expense.
It's, if your
Property
concern
tax
is
4%.
only the general fund, then we can separate that out.
That's my concern, but
But
I
every
would
one
vote for
of these
everything else.
funds has a 1% increase. All of them do, and this is the resolution that authorizes it.
Could we separate the current expense property tax levy with the rest, 2, 3, and
We can split
thought we
these
did that
out
one time
as
before.
as many as you would like.
well,
If you are gonna vote for the 1% increase as to conservation futures, medic one, and is that what you're gonna do?
That's
what I'm
my
asking.
preference.
So let's
yes.
separate that.
So is the only one that you like to exercise your
This
protectively
one.
per se? I'm not asking how you're gonna vote.
Yes, yes.
Perhaps, is the number one, the current expense.
Yes,
so this one, you don't wanna vote for this one, but you're okay with
yes, that's it.
Okay,
so
You're
we-
okay with roads, conservation, medic
Yeah,
one,
the
and-
veterans deal, conservation futures. Matter of fact, I'd like to have a
the
sometime.
money for the veterans fund and for mental health come out of the current expense. They're not separated.
Okay, well, that's okay too, because we're in good shape, as long as it's that one fund.
All right,
So a different resolution just for the
we
current
will
expense.
have a separate resolution for the general fund. Okay, yep, happy to do that. I would not have been happy to do it next Thursday.
Oh, well,
Today,
I thought we had that
to do
clear.
that for
Sorry.
you. We'd have certainly done it, but it would have been a scramble. All right, so that'll be a separate resolution. So you'll have 3 under taxes and fees. And then the last resolution in the packet, we are abolishing, oh no, we're not abolishing anything, we're creating, thank you.
Well, wait, that's not the last one.
No.
The second to last one is the water and sewer rates.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, totally missed that. So number 10 on this list is the approval of the water and sewer rates. And then number 11 is the creation of the Patterson Lake Management.
And the abolishing, I wondered about that abolishing, we're not
It's-
abolishing.
No.
We're creating it.
We're creating.
We're creating the
Okay.
fund, we're not eliminating it.
Okay,
All right. Any questions
Questions?
about any of these?
no, are we going into a hearing?
well,
Yeah,
3:30.
3:30,
Going
there's
into
here.
30.
Okay, any questions, any comments?
Wait, did you do number 11 as well?
Yeah, that's the creation of the Patterson Lake LMD fund.
And because they're gonna take time to contract for their IVAMP and stuff, we don't have to address the public works funding, the public works staffing issue.
We did that in the budget.
Within the budget, it's already included in the budget.
We added staff to manage Patterson
I
Lake.
have a part-time position.
Okay, it's in there, right?
It's in there, yes.
0.5.
Okay, so with that, there's no additional questions or comments. Great work, listeners.
Thank you, great work to the budget team,
So we have a session scheduled tomorrow,
and we
No,
can
cancel
take
so
that off.
that one
Yep.
is canceled, so I guess I'll take this opportunity to thank the budget team in front of us. Thank you all so much for your hard work, for putting all of these packets and all of this information together, and answering all of our questions. This is always a long process, but definitely appreciate all the hard work that all of you do. So, Robin, that goes for you too. Thank you so much for keeping us on task.
So was it good not having the binders to deal with, or was it more of a pain?
It was really good.
I didn't do mine last year, so
It
this
was
is fine.
really good.
Okay, good.
Really
I
good
was
for
fine.
us.
I was fine with
You, I
it.
mean,
It
we
worked for me.
provide you with
This
all the
was fine.
I
copies.
was
and-
happy not having.
That wasn't a
the
problem.
Okay.
I will say, between the move and this, it became a bit complicated.
That's what we
Yeah,
think.
yeah,
But I think if that wasn't going on, I would be just fine.
Yeah, so big kudos to Nicole for coming up on the way to do the digital binder.
And
Yeah.
then I also want to thank members of the public who participated in the survey that we put through. It was a rough draft, but thank you for participating and filling out, your comments and kind of what you thought, the budget should be. And we hope to kind of tune in on that balancing act
We're
survey
gonna make it better.
as
Yeah.
we go into our biennium budget process. With that, it is 3:14 and
So, quick question, Madam Chair, Jamie, is for the 3:30 the same Zoom? Okay.
so I'm just gonna recess. So we're gonna go ahead, at 3:30 PM, we do have a public hearing for 5 Thurston County Commissioners, District Boundary Lines. That will be starting in approximately 15 minutes. If you would like to stay on for that, it is the same Zoom, or if you would like to come in and join us and provide public comment for that. Until then, we are going to take a quick recess for 15 minutes, and so we will be back.